For this episode, Tehillah Flores is my guest on the podcast. Tehillah and I were paired together for a class project years ago, and we have remained friends ever since. She is a Filipina in the arts, in management, and is such a genuine and heartwarming friend. In recent years, we are both always on the road, whether it's for production or for tours, and it's such a rare treat that we are in the same city at the same time. When we recorded this, we actually had a one-day window where I just flew in from New York the day before, and she herself had a flight the next day. It was exciting to find time together for this episode, and I am excited to share it with you. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Tehillah Flores. Welcome to Wear Yellow Proudly Through Our Lens, Conversations with Asians and Asian Americans. I'm your host, Julius Sanchez. Hi everybody, welcome back to this episode of Wear Yellow Proudly Through Our Lens. My name is Julius Sanchez, and I am your host. I am currently here back in Houston, and I'm here with Tehillah. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, God. My name is Tehillah Flores. That's about it. That's all I got. I live here in Houston.
Well, so what do you do?
So I am a touring manager for a Broadway production. So I just, travel the whole United States and Canada.
Oh, that is so rad.
And I'm in a different city every week. And
oh, my God.
I just do the show.
Which is insane because we were just talking about this as I was setting up. And for me, being on a week in a place and then going and then being in a different place after that is insane. How's it been going with you being on tour with that?
It's been an adventure for sure. You get the fun part about being one weekers is if you really love a city, you're like, oh, great. I'm going to maximize my time every single day. And if you really hate a city, you're just like, cool, I'm only here for 5 more days. Cool. It's not like some other shows that I've worked on where it's like, I'm here for 5 weeks. And I'm like, I hate it here.
Yeah. Actually, I think we were Snapchatting about it.
Yes.
A little bit of a while ago. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I think I've driven through that and I would not want to stop.
I have been, oh my gosh, there's one city in particular that and there's nothing wrong with the people there. I mean, it's fine. It's just, I don't love being there. And I tell people all the time, and I feel bad because the main person in our show, he's from there and such a big deal. So he loved, and he's ride or die his city. It's Cleveland, Ohio. But I don't know.
God. I remember you were in Ohio and you were just I am not a fan of Ohio. And you were just I get it, but people don't like it here.
I keep getting sent out to Ohio, when I worked on The Bachelor, I was there for we went to 3 different cities in Ohio, and every single time we had a bad experience.
Working on The Bachelor.
Oh, yeah. So I had toured with The Bachelor as well.
She was actually in the show, actually.
Yeah, you know me. I was stirring the tea.
Exactly. Yeah.
No. So I went on the tour. I was working as their tour merchandise manager for their ultimate fan experience. So it was The Bachelor live on stage tour. It was really fun. It was a one-nighter tour, so we lived on a tour bus. It was hosted by the...
Wait, oh my God, that's even worse.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God.
We lived on a tour bus, one-nighter, different city. The show was hosted by Bachelorette Season 14, Becca Kufrin.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I lived on the same bus with her, which was really fun.
Wait, that's actually, in that level of touring, you actually are living in the bus.
Yes, so we are truly living in the bus.
How was that like? Sorry, this is me just being
No.
This
is really
rad,
fun.
But also, was it rad?
I will always tell people this. I live by this. The best sleep I've ever gotten in the 8 weeks of my life was sleeping on a tour bus.
No way.
So basically day-to-day ops was, we wake up in a city, load-in's either at 8 or 9, whatever. The thing is, I got so fat on a tour bus tour because it was a non-equity tour bus tour.
Yeah.
With that contract, we had 4 meals a day. So
that's amazing.
We would have breakfast before load-in.
Right.
And then they still have the 15-minute donut call.
Yeah, we call it coffee. And
So they still have
but still
you
both
still
of
have
them are in there. Yeah.
You have breakfast, then you have coffee, and then I'm usually done with my setup by maybe an hour and a half into the load-in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not it wasn't a huge set, so it wasn't crazy busy. So most days the rest of the crew was done at maybe 12, 1.
Oh, that's
maybe
good.
2.
So was it a huge set for The Bachelor then?
No, it wasn't that big. it was because it was a one night operation. Like they couldn't make
yeah.
it that big, and it was a 2-truck tour. So
okay, wow.
So nothing crazy, but there were some really fun aspects of the tour.
Yeah.
But literally living on the tour bus was probably my favorite.
That is so fascinating.
You
wow.
have a lounge in the front. We had 8 bunks, and then you have I'm lying. Yeah, 8 beds in the bunks. And then you had the back lounge, which is normally a lounge for other shows. For our show, that's where our host would live.
Oh, cool.
So she got like a full bed in there. And then on the second bus, so it was a 2-truck tour. On the other bus, on the back lounge was where the Bachelor would live. And then typically the other bus was like the crew people. And then on my bus was management and our dancers and our host.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just so fun. I loved touring, like that part of touring, like that aspect of just jumping in, going into a new city. You get that like little 3-hour window of exploring a city, which was really fun. Yeah. And I will say I explored cities a lot more back then because I only had 3 hours.
Oh, so you like just maximizing.
I would just maximize my time. I was exhausted, physically exhausted, but
that's why your sleep was the best.
That's why my sleep was the best. I was physically exhausted. And then we would do the show. I have to be there for doors, since doors are usually 6:30.
And the show was like 7:30?
Yeah, 7:30 show, depending on the venue. And then I didn't have to sell during the show or anything. It was nice because I would just do before, intermission, and after. And even after, like most people did it because everyone wanted to go to the VIP meet and greet afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And so I would barely do anything. And that lifestyle is a little different because afterwards you have to, close out your numbers, do the settlement, and then pack up the whole thing. And then I call my lovely head carp and I say, hey, come pick up my stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then they'll get like local crew members to come push my stuff to the truck, which was great. And it wasn't a big setup, so it was super easy. And then after that, I would shower in the venue because we didn't have a shower on the bus.
Sure. Yeah.
So I would shower in every venue. And we're like, what was crazy to me was this tour was, it was presented as The Bachelor, but we're playing like big Broadway houses. Like we're playing the Fox Atlanta, the Fox St. Louis. We're playing like these monumental, beautiful Broadway houses.
Right.
For us, I'm like, for The Bachelor, which is crazy, but it was really cool. Like I would, if it was a Houston show, I would expect us to play like we played the Smart Financial Center when we played Houston on that tour, but I would expect us to play somewhere like a little bit more modern, like maybe like 713 or something. Not these like big Broadway houses like that we did. Like
that is insane. Wow.
Yeah. So it was really fun. With that being said though, like there are a lot of scary theaters out there. I mean, this, like you work in theater, like there's some scary theaters, and the fact that you have to like shower every night in these theaters, you're kind of like, cool. I mean, we only get a hotel room on Mondays because Mondays are dark, as you know.
Right. That's not nice.
And so on Mondays we'd get a hotel, but the rest of the week you gotta like shower in theater. And sometimes like if we had a canceled show, then we get a hotel that night too, which we didn't have very many canceled shows with that show as well. It's The Bachelor, so
sure. I remembered actually one of the places that you were at was actually a place that I was at like a year and a half ago, Tulsa.
And
it's funny, the PAC, TPAC.
Yeah, TPAC.
Yeah, and I remembered actually us sharing the venue with Chen Yun of all things.
I've wanted to see that show so bad. I see their marketing everywhere around the U.S.
Amazing marketing. It's actually insane. But like they had their 2 trucks or however many trucks that were parked outside, and like some of the dancers were just kind of like warming up or doing their thing or whatever. And I think we were rehearsing right before we went into like tech in their venue. And so we were basically sharing it with them. And so like they had like maybe a couple nights performances there, and then they left, and then like it was like us loading in and everything else. And so, but we were rehearsing in the venue already because they had like a black box score. So anyway, but like, I was like, oh my gosh, I was there. And we shared, actually of all the funny and silly things about that is the fact that we got to share it with Chen Yun.
I'm jealous because I've always wanted to see that show. Like,
I never got to see it, which actually was like really sad.
I literally see their
cool,
marketing in almost every single city. And like I've played some of the most obscure cities, like the tiny towns. And it's kind of fun, like seeing their marketing, because it's like, oh,
have you seen those memes where it's like the landscape of Mars, and then like on Mars, like superimposed onto it.
I know where you're going with this.
Is the Shenyun like billboard on top of it? It's like, damn, like their marketing team is like so stellar.
They're so on it, and I'm like insane. Waiting for my chance to finally go see them. And that's like the one problem with touring. I will say it's like, obviously I love the arts, and I love seeing other shows, and I love seeing like, comedians and all this stuff, but you don't get to when you're on tour.
Actually, like to that extent, I just finished a gig in New York, and our rehearsals were primarily like afternoon and evening, and of course all the shows are afternoon and evening, and so it was very hard at times to actually go see shows. And even though I was very, very close to a lot of the venues, it was so hard to actually just go. And there was a certain week where we just canceled our evening sessions because we were very far ahead. And I was like, I'm going to go see shows. So I went to go see Gutenberg. I went to go see Paolo.
You saw Gutenberg?
I saw Gutenberg.
Gutenberg
was so good. It was really fun because like it's as I've been telling everybody this. It's as unhinged as you'd think a show with Josh Gad and Andrew Reynolds would be. They have 20 different characters on stage. They have 20 different characters for the show, and it's just the two of them playing it.
Oh wow!
It is nuts. It's really funny. It's so good. I really recommend it to anybody. But it's really good. I think that both of their they work together in Book of Mormon, but it's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Anyway, like during, whenever we're on the road or whenever we're rehearsing or even just like having shows or whatever, it's always on top of exactly when other people would be. Speaking of something that you said earlier, back in college, that's actually how Tehillah and I met, we were in
opera,
like
a advanced selective opera class,
it's
opera history or something.
Opera theory. And the craziest thing is that it counted as a theory credit, and actually it was very, very
it was theory heavy. It was history and theory heavy,
and our professor is honestly, I would say, and this is like with the utmost respect, it was an opera nerd.
Yes,
but
and
she
I
was
loved
also,
it.
Yeah, and she was a theorist as well. But what was really wonderful about it was the fact that she was just like breaking down chords and just like going into leitmotif, and then just like going into just like these the different composers, and I'm just like, this is really cool. And so of course it's a bunch of from what I saw, at least on my viewpoint, was that a bunch of the master students took that class, like vocal master students took that class, and then like a handful of people that were like, I think upper level undergrads, upper level undergrads, and then like like the handful of master's students. And so it was like an upper level like theory class, which was really, really fun. And we were signing up randomly, and it was like maybe like a class of 10, and we were signing up randomly for like some projects, and like honestly, like class was really, really fun. And then like one of the projects, one of the three, I was paired with Tehillah.
Yes.
And I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I've never met you. And you actually had a hiatus, I believe, before that. And I think you came back to school.
Yes. I left school because I went to an intern at Disney World.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was that.
Yes, that's why I was like, why did I leave school? And I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
The biggest thing in my life.
And like, it's funny because like some of my closest friends were just like, oh yeah, like that's Tehillah. And I was like, I've never met her. And so, and then we met, and then we started like figuring, I forgot what our project was about, but you know what I remember from that?
The cheese. Oh my God. I was like, that's all I don't even know what we were talking about.
Correct. Same.
I just remember that. I don't even know. It was a song. I just don't even remember what the song was.
I have no idea. Yeah. We were dissecting and like talking about, we were presenting something together.
A whole like PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's be funny about it. And so we brought cheese.
Yeah, because we were just like, I think it was French. It's got to be French.
I think it was French.
And we definitely thought about bringing in wine.
Yes.
Or at least I did. And I was like, this is ridiculous, but also,
like, why not?
Can we why not? And so I'm just like, okay, well, I think we bought like somewhat a semblance of a charcuterie board, but we were just definitely like, if these guys are going to be, or if we're going to be up here and these guys are going to be listening to us, let's at least, in my mind, I was like, let's at least distract them with some cheese.
Yes, 100%.
And so we did, and then we presented, and honestly, that was one of the more fun projects I've ever done. I still think of it to this day. I don't know what it was about, and I can't even tell you what we talked about or what it was, like anything about it. But we had cheese.
That's all I remember from, like, the only things I can take away from that opera class, like, it gave me this love of opera, because it's not like it's not that I don't love opera, like obviously we had to play in the opera pit and stuff, and I've always been around opera, but I just remember that she loved opera so much.
Yeah, our professor, yeah.
That it really opened up like opera to me, because you could see her passion and like just her love for it was just so, I don't know the word for it. Oh gosh, there's a word that I'm looking for, but
fervor?
Sure.
Yeah.
But she was just so passionate about it, and I was like, if she's this passionate about it, like I've got to give it a chance.
Sure, yeah.
And like, 'cause she took us to the opera, we saw La Boheme,
and I think we had to see 2 shows specifically in that semester, and one of them half of us worked in, and that was my last show actually that I called as a student, was the Ballad of Baby Doe.
Oh,
and it was the student.
Was I in that?
The student show. I don't know, maybe.
I feel like I was in the pit for that.
Yeah, because like Cody sang in it, Jason sang in it.
Yes, I was in the pit.
All
for that.
the guys were in it, and I was the stage manager for the show,
we
and
were
so
all in that show.
yeah, like, and then she was like, if you're not working the show, like come see the show, and then we went to go see La Boheme
and the Houston Grand Opera. Yes.
And I was like, this is amazing. And like, it was I've seen shows there before, but I don't know if I've ever seen La Boheme, and oh my god, honestly, like still like to this day, like still one of my favorite.
Yes, it's still so beautiful and so like, I'm like, oh yeah. And then I had never seen Rent after that.
Okay.
So I was like, I hear Rent is just like La Boheme, so I thought to myself like I should watch Rent. So a couple weeks after we had seen La Boheme, I watched Rent, and I was like, oh my god, I love it. I love the references. And it just gives you like that little itty bitty like I don't know. I love a musical reference when you can put them in. Like, oh, I don't want to spoil the movie. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. I just saw a movie and there was like a little musical reference, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure not a lot of people are going to get this unless they're musical theater people.
Right.
Or like, there's like I watched Ted Lasso, and there was an episode of Ted Lasso. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I haven't seen the third season.
Okay,
but I
so there's
love
this
Ted
one
Lasso.
guy, and he goes, his little catchphrase every time he sees Ted Lasso, he's not really in the show that much, but he goes wicked, like as like cool, you know. He'll go wicked, and so Ted Lasso responds with kinky boots. I was just, to me that was the funniest reference. Like,
that is so funny.
I was like, this is hilarious.
This is freaking hilarious.
This is exactly like the little references I needed in life.
Yeah.
But I love a musical reference when you can throw one in.
One of my favorite things is like two of my favorite jokes from the show was like season 1, and some friends introduced me to it like years ago, and it was them talking about like this like tabloid thing that like got released or whatever in the show or something, and it's the tabloid's called The Sun, and
yes.
like the head of the company was just like, so I talked to the owner of The Sun, and then Ted goes, you talked to God? And then like earlier on, she asks him like, how do you take your tea? I was like, oh, I usually take it right back. I hate tea. Go watch Ted Lasso, like shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Yeah. I've watched it like 17 times all the way through.
It's a good comfort show.
Love Ted Lasso. It's when one of my friends was first describing Ted Lasso to me, because I was like, oh, like I tried watching it when it first came out, and I wasn't really into it, but I was also like hosting like a few people at my house, and so it just
wasn't like in the background.
I was like in the background, so I wasn't paying attention to it. So I finally gave it another chance while I was touring. Because there's some times when you're like, I don't really want to do anything, and it was in the winter time where we were in north, and I'm too tropical coconut for that. So I was like, I'm way too tropical coconut for that.
Hilarious.
I could not handle the cold at all. So
I
would just sit and I would binge movies or like binge shows, and so I started watching Ted Lasso, and my friends were like, it is the most wholesome show you could ever see. And I said, that is a great way to describe it. Like after watching it all the way through, I'm like, it is wholesome.
It's also good on mental health too.
Yes.
Like they talk about mental health, and like you realize, spoiler alert, forgive me, like you realize like like episode 1, you realize like Ted has some issues that he has to go through.
Yeah.
But when the psychologist came in season 2 or something.
Season 2, yes, Dr. Sharon.
Like, and I was like, why does Ted hate her? And I was like, and you learn, and I'm just, but it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but it's also such a gorgeously done show. And again, like props to Jason Sudeikis. It's
a great show. I mean, it's wholesome. It gets you to think about like the other little things in life, and it's like you never really know what people are going through.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest things. Like you're a person in the limelight, and it's like 1,000%. You never know what they're going through. You never know what they've been through. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and if you've never seen the show, it's about this American that was a football coach, and he took them to the championships one, and then he got hired by a football team, a soccer team in England, and then he's taken over to do it, and he's just a generally positive person. It's really hard to break him. Really, really fantastic human being. But you watch him and his journey and just like how he's like and how he takes this team, and I just love his presence. It's really, really wonderful. I feel like if a lot of us have had that kind of presence with coaches or teachers or a mentor figure, it's I feel like the world is a nicer and brighter place. And
100%.
I think it's really, really
we need
rad.
more people like Ted Lasso in this world.
You mentioned this about opera, but you were in the pit.
I was.
Your instrument was violin. Yeah.
That's what brought me to UH in the first place.
Can we expand on that? Can you talk on that a little bit? Because you don't play anymore,
I don't really play, and I don't really announce it because it's really funny because I'm on a Broadway show and I'm in management and nobody knows that I went to school for music.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. I actually... I don't sing. I don't think I've sang in front of you either, but I do have a lot of singing experience as well.
Yeah.
Growing up, I studied piano as early as 6 years old.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I did piano as a kid all the way up until college, and so I did piano at 6. I did violin at 10. I did bass guitar at 9.
That is so cool.
And so I was just this little instrumentalist. I was also in all city choir as a kid.
Oh my gosh.
My parents really pushed me, and it was ironic because my parents pushed me to do medicine going into
we talked about this a lot, and I would love to dive into this.
My parents talk about this all the time. They're like, but you could have been like a musical therapist or whatever.
Like some sort of doctor in there.
Yes, they want me to be. They wanted to push medicine on me so hard because obviously that's all my family really knew. I come from a long line of just, the stereotypical Filipino nurse.
Tehillah's Filipino.
I'm Filipino. Yes. Hello. Yes. Yes. I come from a long line of nurses. My mom's a nurse. My dad's a nurse. My grandma's a nurse. My aunt's a nurse. But my cousin's a little different. He's a doctor. Oh no. Yeah. My brother's in school for nursing. So
Wait, what? Okay.
Yes. Everyone
your brother
around
was in the military.
My brother was in the military. Yeah. He actually also studied piano performance at first when he first went to college. Yes.
Oh my God.
So my brother's actually the pianist of my family, which was nice because I had a built-in accompanist my whole life. So going to Moores.
Who has that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Going into Moores and having to get an actual accompanist. My freshman year, they gave me another freshman student.
Oh yeah, they just don't get it.
But then once I went on my sophomore year and up, they gave me one of the professional pianists.
Oh, good. That's terrific. Instead of the student.
The student was great. Don't get me wrong. She was great. Yeah. We had great times and great talks, but sometimes it just, an adult, a professional accompanist is kind of better for you.
1,000%.
But so I grew up being an instrumentalist my whole life, performing. My life was centered around violin primarily. That was my primary instrument. Yeah. And I loved it. And I fought my parents for 2 years just to pursue music in college.
While you were in college?
While I was in high school.
Oh, excuse me. While you were in high school.
Yeah, while I was in high school. So my friends, I went to a GT school. So, what's new? My parents, they cared about my education. So they put me in GT school as soon as I could get in.
For those that don't know, GT means gifted and talented.
Yes.
Is that a Texas thing? I don't know
if that's a Texas thing.
Because Tehillah's originally from Dallas. You grew up
in Dallas. And so
we're currently in Houston. I grew up in Houston. And so GT for me is a very normal thing because it's gifted and talented. It's a tier similar to AP or
it's like IB.
IB. Yeah. And I had IB growing up.
I had IB growing up.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't know IB as well. Everybody knows AP.
Yeah, everyone knows AP. My school had IB, so I was an IB student. Yeah. My sixth subject was music theory.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is so cool, though. Yeah. That's fantastic.
So I really, really did pursue a whole musical track in life, and so I'm not surprised that this is where I'm at.
If I may ask, what was the catalyst for you with your, I'm sure obviously it didn't stop them from continuing to just be can you still do, something with the medical field with that? What was it for them, or even for you, where it was just okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pursue this and, this is what I want to do.
I had a best friend and she was just so shoot for the stars. I mean, she ended up going to Vanderbilt. Her little sister goes to Harvard. She was a very shoot for the stars kind of person. And so we started going to college fairs our sophomore year of high school. She
nuts.
was just so determined. Like she's so smart. So, and I give her mad props. We don't really talk anymore, but I give her mad props.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously that kind of like sparked my interest. I'm like, what am I going to pursue? Like, you know exactly what you want. You want to do special education. She had a special needs brother and she wanted to pursue a life in that, taking care of like how to communicate with her brother well, how to communicate with others who are like her brother well. So I was very like, you know, I was very inspired by that. Yeah. And to me, I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, I guess I could be a nurse. So, you know, just, you know, what everyone else does. Everyone else around me is a nurse, so I as well try that. So the fun part about the high school I went to and the school district I was in, I grew up in the suburbs of Dallas, and the school district I was in has a clinicals program. So every high school, every high school, there's 7 high schools in our district, but every high school has clinicals as well. And the fun part is every high school has something different. So year 1 clinicals is all the same. You just rotate at a hospital, but even then each high school goes to different hospitals. Ironically, the high school that my school went to was the hospital my dad worked at.
Oh my God.
So it was kind of also hard because it's like, and my dad had just won the CEO award that year for starting music therapy at that hospital.
Oh my God.
And so it was a big deal, that he's like, my daughter's going to be shadowing here. Yeah. It was a big deal. So I was in clinicals my junior year of high school, and, you know, it was hilarious. They're like, oh my God, you're Victor's daughter. You are going to be he is so great. Like my dad, I'm just like my dad. Like he has this big personality. Like he's so like, he's a smile.
Personable person.
Personable person. Like
very extroverted. Yeah.
Yes. And so they're like, you're going to be just like him. Like he's a great nurse. He cares about his patients. You're going to do great. They're like, since you're already around the medical field, like let's give you something fun. So the very first day, they put me in wound care.
Oh my God.
So like post-op wound care. So like after a person, like when they have like open exposed wounds. So they put me in wound care my very first day, and I walked in and I was shadowing, and I'm in my cute little scrubs. And we had our own we had black scrubs. They had our school logo on it here and your name.
Wow.
It was so cute. I loved it.
Yeah, like super customized.
Yeah.
Yes. Like that is insane.
Yeah. It was
for high school as well. That is actually crazy cool.
I will say we probably had the best scrubs out of all the other high schools. Oh my God. All the other high schools, they usually were around their school colors. Sure, yeah. My school colors were black and gold. Okay. So we had black with gold.
Really regal. Yeah.
Yes. It was black with gold embroidery. So it was actually kind of fun. But like my friend who went to South and was in their clinicals program, their school colors were red, white, and blue because they were like the colonels. That was their little thing.
Like popcorn?
Yeah.
Your face. Yeah.
Like
you went along with it so well, but I'm just like, I'm gonna be such a jerk about this.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Like the colonel. Yeah,
like the popcorn.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So their mascot was the colonel, and so theirs were red scrubs with like blue embroidery, or like there's a school their colors are green and orange, and they had like these beautiful like forest green scrubs with orange embroidery. Cool. So like I will say ours kind of looked the best because we had our school mascot was the owl, so we also had an owl on our scrubs, embroidered owl, which was really, really fun. So we had cute scrubs. You know, I'm walking into the wound care department, and I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm shadowing this nurse, and I'm like, this is gonna be so fun. I fainted.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Because of
it wasn't even bloody. Like I was looking at a guy's foot with the nurse.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. Like I ate lunch that day. Like
sure, yeah.
I'm a normal, healthy person.
Yeah.
And it was the smell of just like the smell of being, and it wasn't like, it was a very sterile room, obviously, but just rotting flesh does not smell great.
Oh my gosh.
You could see this guy's bone. Like it was crazy. So for me, that was my first day, and I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it for me. This is not it.
How long was the program for?
The program was the whole school year.
Oh my goodness.
So this was my first day.
How frequently did you do it?
We went every B day. So
Okay,
usually twice.
every other day?
Yeah, every other day.
I also get it because we were block scheduling.
Yeah, block scheduling. A day, B day.
So if anybody doesn't know, I'm just like, we're like living.
Yeah, we're Texas kids. Like this is what we're used to.
So block scheduling is you have 8 classes regularly in a school year. And so what happens is that you have 4 classes one day and then the other 4 classes the other day. So my high school also did A-day, B days. My middle school also did that, but we called them purple days and red days just because those were our school colors.
That's cute.
But yeah, anyway, like block scheduling was like every other day. So sometimes you may see a certain class like 3 times a week, and then some classes you may see them only like twice or whatever. But it like would alternate. And so it was every other day.
Yeah, so basically every other day, and like the whole thing of it is that like you're going to different like departments every day. You're seeing different things to see what you want to specialize in one day, because if this is really what you want in life, like, and I appreciate the program so much because when I was in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a neurologic pediatrician. That's what I decided. I didn't want to be a nurse. I wanted to be a step above that. Like, no, sorry to you parents. Like, sorry, but I wanted to be a neurologic pediatrician. Yeah. Like I loved working with kids. I loved studying the brain, which is why later on, like I studied music in the brain at UH, which was really fun, but side story. But yeah, so that was my first day. And then like, okay, like I fainted, whatever. They're like, okay, we'll try again. So second day, I'm at the place where we all meet up with our nurses and stuff, and I'm ready.
With your scrubs.
I got my cute little scrubs on. I'm ready to start my day. Right. I'm here. It's like 1 o'clock. Yeah. Labor and delivery.
What did you have to do?
I had to watch a live birth.
Oh my gosh.
So again, I fainted. It's the smell.
It's the smell. Okay.
It's the smell of, open hoo-ha, blood, all the good stuff. I was just, a little, and of course, like, because it's a teaching hospital, they always have to ask the patients, like, is it okay if we have a student like shadowing? And they're like, yeah, why not? Show them. I was like, okay, cool. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So my second day, I also fainted. And then my third day, they're like, okay, like, let's take a step back. My third day, I go to the hospital. I'm ready. They're like, okay, like let's take a step back. Like let's just chill. Let's go to the ICU. And I was like, okay.
That's a step back?
That's a step back because it's quiet there, right? Like you're quiet.
Yeah, okay.
And I hate it's not that I hate telling this story, but it's like I don't want to go all like I'm all happy and cheery. But no, like my third day, I watched someone flatline. And I get very attached to people. Yeah. So like for me, I was like, I can't be in this field. I get too attached. I get way too attached to patients. And one of the hard things later on my senior year, I realized this is definitely not for me. Because I still did it my senior year too.
Wait, so you just kept... Sorry, you kept going? Like
I finished off the year. I still went. I still experienced all the departments. I watched a colonoscopy. Like I went to gastros.
It's your demeanor. Colonoscopy.
Like that one I was cool with. Like apparently I'm cool with colonoscopies.
It didn't spell that bad.
Anyway. It didn't spell bad. So,
oh my God.
But yeah, so like I continued out the year, and I really told my parents, I was like, clearly this is not for me. And it was really hard for them to hear because I think for them, they're like, my daughter's going to be a doctor and my brother was always destined to be like, we grew up in the church. Like my brother was destined to be like a worship pastor. He's a beautiful singer, plays the piano, plays guitar, plays the drums. So they're like, he's going to be like a worship pastor. He's going to be in the music field. And it's kind of funny because we flip-flopped, right? Like I'm in the music field and now he's in medicine. So, but that was their intentions for us being first gen American. Your parents want the best for you. I just watched a movie. Like I just watched Elemental, and I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen it? No. It's the new It's like the newest project with Pixar.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know what it was going to be about, but it's kind of about first gen immigration without being about first gen immigration. And as a first gen kid, my parents are citizens now, but being raised first gen, it's like your parents want the best for you. Your parents want to live the American dream. And it's actually like really, I was like sobbing. I texted my friend yesterday who also loves Pixar. And she like wanted to work in the animation studios for Pixar. Right. So she like dives deep into every Pixar project. And she was like, God, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But it really is like being a first gen American, and seeing that story be told, which is like similar to what my story is. It's like my parents want the best for, obviously, like everyone's parents want the best for them. But my parents came to America because they wanted a family here. They wanted to like raise their kids here. They wanted to give like a good life to their kids. So for me, I'm just like, oh, like cool. But it's not gonna be medicine. Sorry about your mom.
Yeah, gosh, it's that continuous conversation of, when immigrants come here, they always want to have like, of course, like the best for them and like what they can do as well, but also like, they want to pass that on of just like that certain drive. And it's hard because it doesn't translate well into the kids that want to pursue something in the arts.
Yes.
And I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's hard to justify because a lot of times we see arts as like, oh, like it's not a needed thing, or it's not something that we see as viable, or it's an optional thing.
Yeah.
I think I forgot who said this, but I think they said something along the lines of people see art as a vocation, not an occupation.
Yes.
And I thought that was like, I've always thought that was like such a profound thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so profound and also incredibly true. And it's like always seen as a bit of an afterthought, but like it also kind of goes back to that quote that you'd see sometimes of just like people saying, when the world turns darkest, or when like especially like when they pick a pandemic, like what do you turn to? You turn to movies, turn to music, you
turn
go
to art.
yeah. And so but it's that. So okay, so you told your parents, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I had to fight with them. They're like, there's no money in arts. You will not have a successful life. And obviously it all stemmed back to, we want you to have a successful life. We want to be able to retire without having to worry about you. And I get that. They're like, nursing is stable. Nursing is something that you can do. And I was like, clearly it's not. If I'm fainting in the hospital every day, clearly it's not. Yeah. And like, for me, I get very attached to people. I told them, I was like, I watched somebody die today. Like, I literally watched him flatline, them try to save him, and then they couldn't save him. Like, it's so hard. And I was 16. I was 16 at the time, and it's so hard to see, and it's so hard to like understand that like this is not the life I want to live. And you see things like this in shows. Like I was watching Scrubs the other day. I was watching the first season, and it's like the first time you have a patient die on you, it's so hard to call that time of death. Like it's trauma. It's not that it's traumatizing. It's just it stays with you.
Yeah.
It stays with you.
Also, I don't know, for those that may not know, for people that are being resuscitated or that are trying to be brought back, it's a lot of physical trauma on one's body.
Yes.
And I never knew that until I took my first aid and CPR class.
Yeah,
is like
it's a
we
lot.
were just like they were just like press hard, and we're just like, but won't we break? Yeah,
you could.
You are. And it's insane, especially like obviously the older they get. And I didn't understand like do not resuscitate, like
the
like
DNRs.
People, yeah. Until I was like, that's insane. And like my mom worked as a caregiver, and the last person that they had, and I'm glad that she was not the one that was on duty, but she's like in her 80s or 90s, and she's very old, and so they were just like they called it, but again, I was glad it wasn't my mom, because it's just they're just destroying her body. And it's like again, like it's not something that they ever really tell you, but
it's one of those things. It's like
it's really traumatizing.
It is. And I mean, as growing up as kids, like my dad was in nursing school when I was a kid. My mom has always been the nurse.
Yeah.
And my dad, he went to college for agriculture originally.
Really?
They went to college in the Philippines, and he was supposed to inherit a farm.
Oh, wow.
And then he met my mother. They met at freshman year of college. They fell in love. They were college sweethearts. And I mean, back then college was at 15.
So
because they skipped middle school, basically.
I think they just bumped it finally to 18.
Yes.
But my cousins were like on the cusp of that. I think they were pretty upset at spaghetti about it. But you would go to your high school ends at 15 or 16. And that's what's
and that was norm. And so my parents met at 15, freshman year of college, and they fell in love. And, you know, my mom immediately after college, she got a job offer in New York City to be a nurse.
Oh, wow.
There was a shortage of nurses in America.
Yeah.
She could make a life for herself. And she was like, I'm doing it. And she didn't even she didn't turn back or anything. She was just, she was like, this is it. This is what I need to do. And I give her mad props because she walked away from everything. Like she left my dad in the Philippines. Like she came here in 1991, and they didn't get married till 1994. Like she came here without him, and she made a life for herself in New York City, as a nurse living in Queens.
Insane.
And so, you know, it's kind of interesting to see, but my dad started originally as an agriculture major, and he finished it, I assume, and then ended up not working out. So like he was like, I don't have a farm. Like, what good is this going to do me in New York City? So he studied theology after that. Then he became a pastor and all that good stuff. And he was like, well, you know, pastoring's not too much. So he was like, I could take on something else. And my dad just has this knowledge, like he's knowledge hungry. He loves to learn. So my dad also decided to go to nursing school, and that's really where he thrives. I get to watch my dad, and I'm like, I don't think I'm being biased. I mean, he won the CEO award, but he really does care for his patients, and he does get this like attachment to them, and it's very sweet to see like genuine good nurses, because I also have been around, like I've been, you know, I'm on medical leave from my job right now, and I've been through 6 different doctors in 6 different cities, and like because when I first got injured, they still kept me on the tour. They're like, you're gonna get better, and I wasn't getting better because I was seeing a different doctor every week, and I would, you know, they all have a different
because like you're on a weekly. Oh my gosh,
it was so hard just trying to get medical treatment. So finally they were like, just go home and like try to get, you know, one consistent regimen, and then you'll heal and come back. But you know, I've experienced a lot of doctors this whole round of me just going, you're the next doctor's problem.
Oh my gosh.
They called me a moving target essentially. And
oh my God.
So like, you know, I see a lot of that, but then I see my parents and how like they care about what they do. And I'm just like, I think that like I'm very much about like, you should go into something that you're passionate about. And so like, I am passionate about music, and my parents were passionate. My dad's a people person, so he like wants to care for people, and it's a great job, and it's a great life for them. I wish I did have that sometimes, because I do think it's fun to be in hospitals. I love going to the hospital. I just didn't love being there for the nasty stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of why I kind of sat them down and I said, I want to pursue music. I think this is what I'm good at. You've raised me my whole life. They're like, we never thought you'd pursue a degree in this thing. Like, we just thought it'd be fun. And I'm like, oh, all right. So, you know, I was a very, very competitive violinist. Really? I had to be the best.
Yeah. Especially with violin too.
I mean, exactly.
Insane.
Like, I was taping for Allstate. I was taping for college my senior year, to a point where like in my clinicals, my second year. So the fun part about clinicals, year 2, if you make it to year 2, you get to specialize. And so that's why your first year, you go through all these little things, and every high school has a different specialty. And if you make it to year 2, you have to go to that high school for that specialty. So my school was EKG and CERT, and I was like, I don't want to do that. There was a high school that was EMT. I applied for their program, didn't get it, and I was like, that's fine, because I don't think it was actually for me. And then I also applied for the farm tech one. So when you're done with that class, you're automatically certified as a farm tech. So I did farm tech, and I did it just because I needed the credit. I mean, my brother had ended up failing a class in high school because he just didn't care about school. Like he's smart, he just didn't care. And so he had to go to summer school one summer, and my mom was like, well, we're so close in age, we're 14 months apart. She was like, well, if I gotta send one of you to summer school, I might as well send both of you to summer school. So I got ahead. And so I didn't really have any other classes to take. I was already in a 6th subject in in IB. And then like my math, I just did the math studies. So it was only a 1-year math program, not the 2-year math program. So I didn't have a math class my senior year. I had English. I didn't have a history class my senior year. So I took music theory. I did 1 year of comp sci. I thought that would be fun. Like I just had to take random classes. I had late arrival, early release. Like I had like, I was trying to fill my time. So I had to do farm tech because I really just didn't have anything else to do.
Oh, insane.
And I took farm tech and I hated it. And I appreciate pharmacists and what they do, but it could not be me. But they're so knowledgeable. Like every year you have to study the new 200 top drugs. Like, and there's so many drugs that like the drugs change every year. The drug book is this thick and you gotta know everything. Like it's funny because like I see my parents and I'm like telling them I'm on a medical leave. And so like I've been on muscle relaxers, I've been on steroids, I've been on all sorts of things like lately. And my mom's like, interesting. That must be a new drug. And I'm just like, that's wild. And like, they know their generic name, they know their real name, like the brand names. So it's kind of cool to see like how, not like, I mean, yes, it takes a lot to be like in the medical field, but it's crazy. And I mean, you could say the same about music, right? Like we know all this history and all this stuff and most people don't really care, but it's like the same thing for everyone's field. Like there's all this little things that people like generically don't care about. But it's always kind of cool to see and appreciate when you do see it.
Like the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, the nitty gritty of it.
Actually, come to think of it, my sister was talking about how I think the Alley Theater came to their school and just like presented something, just like an outreach thing, an education thing. And so she was talking about how like the stage manager, she kind of like saw what the stage manager did and she was like, that is insane, like all the things that you're like, doing.
They do so much.
Yeah and like, you know, like what their job entails and everything. And so I was like, yeah it's like this and that and whatever else. And so obviously it's like not to a level where like she fully comprehends. And like I will say it's so hard at times to describe what I do. I always generalize stage management and everything, which, you know, like works conversationally, but then it's like describing like, okay, like what do you mean by calling the show, or like what do you mean by like the cues, or what do you mean by the fly system? It's just like,
it's this and this. And
and it's just like, okay, like I'm not gonna bore you to death with like all of it, but you know, this is like what I do and how I'm a part of it. So, but like, you know, like to the credit of what you said, it's, you know, it's, you may not necessarily be directly a part of it, but it's really fascinating to get a glimpse and understanding
of what they do. Of what they like, what are their life, like what are their day-to-day ops are. I'm like, oh, and I mean, up to this day, my parents still don't really know what I do. They just know I'm in a different city every week. And I'm like, they're like, I don't really know what you do. And I'm like, well, you know, sometimes I'm in a truck, sometimes I'm on the like sometimes I'm like walking around a theater, I'm backstage in my office, I'm just everywhere. So it's like up till now, my parents still really don't know exactly what I do. So when I like had this injury, they're like, and I'm like, So
yep.
literally.
I totally get that. Oh my god.
So yeah, that was kind of why we drew the line where I was like, I can't really do this. And I told my parents, I was like, I don't want to do this, and I started to look at music schools instead. My parents, once they finally agreed to it, they took me to a music college fair, which was very special to me because I fought for this for so long, you know? And I really wanted, I was like, okay, I'm going to study music. Like, this is what I want to do. And once they finally were on board, like, I fell in love, and I was like, if I'm going to go to school, I want to study music business. I always wanted to go to school for music business. So going to UH and having that like double little thing I did was.
What did you graduate with?
I never graduated.
Oh.
But yes.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, I left. I
mean, like, you're doing it.
I'm doing it. I figured I was 5. I always tell people, and they give me so much like crap about it. And I'm like, I was 3 classes away from graduating when I left. But it's like, I left the first time because I got the offer to go on the Latin the first tour. I was offered a job with them the first time, and I had to drop out of school in that moment. And when I dropped out, and then it actually didn't come to fruition, I didn't go. So I dropped out kind of for no reason.
Sure.
I was still working for, an employer that would pay for college, and they actually had me transfer to University of Arizona.
Okay, I wanted to say
yes.
Arizona. I wasn't sure if that was
so
okay.
I was doing classes with Arizona online, and even then and they had like an arts media education program, and I didn't finish that one either because, I ended up getting a touring gig, and now I'm kind of at this point, and like I get a lot of crap from my family because I am, grew up in an Asian household, and they're like, you have to have the piece of paper. That's all we care about. Like, and I had to, my grandma passed away this past summer, and we went and we saw all of our family. We don't have a ton of family in America, but all the family that we do, we're at my grandma's funeral. I call her my American grandma. It's my great aunt. It's the sister of my grandma. So
it's Lola.
It's Lola. Lola is Lola, right?
Lola means
Lola is Lola.
Lola is grandma, and Lolo is grandpa in Tagalog. Do you guys speak Tagalog at home?
Yeah. They used to.
Like you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up with it in the house, but
because I always assume anytime I ever have a Filipino friend, I always assume Tagalog, and like I don't regard the other Filipino languages.
Dialects.
And so
so my parents also speak Visayan, so it's like
okay, there you go. Yeah.
Or is it Ilonggo? Oh gosh, I don't even know what they speak anymore.
Aside from Tagalog, they speak something else.
They speak other dialects because they're both from different islands. They're both like Central Philippines.
Sure,
but they're from different islands. So they do have different dialects. The problem is growing up, they would sometimes speak in Tagalog, sometimes speak in like whatever dialect they were speaking. But in the house, I hear everything.
Sure.
And so I can understand it all, but I don't know what what dialect you're speaking.
Sure,
so when people talk to me, sometimes I understand it because I know the dialect, but I can't tell you this is Tagalog, and I can't tell you what this is. Like,
to be brutally honest, sometimes I hear the other ones and I'm just like, it sounds the same thing. It's like I can't understand you.
Little differences. Like in one language, it's ate kuya for big brother, big sister, but in another dialect, it's manong manang.
Yes,
like that.
But manong manang is like means like older man or older woman in Tagalog as well. Yeah. And so, but I heard that and I was like, excuse me, I think it's like a local.
It's so weird, like the different dialects. So I hear it all, but
my dad is from the country, and he grew up in Bulacan, and so like aside from like kuya and ate means older brother, older sister, and you show that respect to your older, not even like your direct siblings, but like to anybody that is
anyone who's in your generation,
friend, like, more or less.
Yeah, like in your family friend circle, like everyone's my ate. Like I'm ate to like 10 different kids right now.
I'm kuya to like a bunch of kids as well.
I refuse to tell people I am a tita. They're like, you're 27, you're an adult now, and I'm like, I am still ate. I am still young and hip and fine.
Yeah, and like if and tita tito is aunt and uncle, and so you call that is somebody's. That is a generation older than you are.
Yes.
And so, but with my dad growing up, they also had like a further breakdown of like that. And so, the oldest brother and the oldest sister were kuya and ate. But after that, it was, diche and, I forgot the other one. But then, it's like diche then sanko is like the brothers. And so it was like also like this hierarchy. And so my dad is a second born male. And so he's, Dico and Diche. And so he was always called Dico Joseph. And so that's always, anyway, but it's this whole thing of just like, there's also like a hierarchy as to like who's older. A lot of like newer generations definitely don't do that anymore.
Yes.
But anyway, so sorry, Lola.
Yeah. So Lola passed away, and like, this was the first time I was seeing a lot of my family. I have been very work oriented, and so like I don't get to see my family as often as I really should. But with my Lola passing, like it did hit me really hard. Like I was very surprised, like not surprised, but like I was kind of upset. I missed it. I knew she was not doing well, but nobody really told me anything. And then I was like, maybe I should go out there and go help and whatever. And so I call my boss, and he's like, yeah, like you already have some coverage. I had a sub in already because it was
So you were in the middle of touring.
I was in the middle of touring, and they, we were about to go into a 3-week layoff. So I was like, can I just leave early and take care of my family? And he was like, absolutely, go do it. And as I was on my flight, she had passed. So it was kind of hard. Like it was a little difficult, but the nice thing was like, you know, getting to be with that family. It was in like the middle of nowhere, Tennessee.
I was going to ask you
in between Memphis and Nashville, there's like a tiny little town, and the closest town, like the closest actual city with hotels is 40 miles away. So I got a hotel because, you know, I live in hotels. So like I needed a hotel. And nobody was living in my grandma's house anymore. So like her son actually passed away last year or something like that. He got cancer and passed away. So unfortunately it was just really hard. So he was the one living in the house, but we spent some time cleaning out the house too. But because we were all there, we were all like, you know, we haven't seen each other in so long. We're just talking about our lives and what we're doing with our lives. And they're like, so what do you do? They're like, you are in a different city what do you do? And I was like, you know, I'm just on tour. That's it. I was like, I'm on tour. And they're like, so what'd you graduate in? You know, my mom would laugh and she's like, ha! She didn't graduate. And I'm like, thank you, mother. Thank you for telling everyone. And I would explain my case to them. And I'm like, you know, I'm making the big bucks money, and I'm happy, and I'm traveling, and everything I could have ever wanted in my career. Like I'm already at that point, and I started this at 25. I always tell people I'm living the dream. And so I explained my case to like my uncles and my aunts, and you know, my aunt they grew up American. She was first gen, but she's like the same age as my mother. And she went to school for piano performance, and her husband went to school for vocal performance, and they are both musicians, and they live in Destin, Florida now. And so I was so lucky that I had them there, because they were able to like back me up and like understand where I'm coming from. And so, you know, they're trying to like, knowing who my mother is, and, you know, the kind of family we come from, and why, you know, it's the expectations, it's the status of, you know, having the degree, having the piece of paper. But my aunt and my uncle, they were like, listen, like, she is making money, and she is happy and successful, and that's all you can ask for. And she's not being like in the corner of the world that she grew up in. You're everywhere. And so with that, like, my parents were kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, they still want the piece of paper at the end of the day. They always give me a lot of crap about it. They're always just like, so when are you gonna graduate? I get it all the time. And it's kind of one of those things where you're just like, because it's hard to go back. And maybe one day I will, because I do like, all I have to take is the last section of history and 2 history electives. So there are like things that would interest me, because I do love the advanced classes. Of course, the upper level classes have always piqued my interest. So I did the opera class with you. I also took a pop music one with Dr. Kuzin, I think. But I took a couple, like, I am curious to go back and see, but I never actually finished. And I don't regret it. You know, I don't regret. You don't seem like it. That's wonderful. I was like, I feel like I'm thriving, and maybe one day I'll go back, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't like, I respect anyone who does, but also my profession doesn't require it. So right. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, like if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, absolutely, you have to go to school. But if you're in entertainment, like, and I already have the job, like I'm already have the job that I would getting a degree for. Right. So like it's kind of contradicting itself. I know people that are, you know, that have been or are like professional singers or just professional performers already, and they're going back and forth and just like going to school and like whatever else, and after a certain point they just stop being in school, because they're just like, the reason why you go to school is to do it, but you're already doing it. And so I'm not saying like there's no point anymore, but it's like, well, like you're fine if you skip that step. Like you're doing that step just so you can get to the next few, but you're already there. I appreciate you saying this so much on a very personal level, because it took me 8 years to get my piece of paper. And
a very, very long time. And like along with that, there's never any shame also in like taking as long as you need to. I was on academic suspension. I was on academic probation. I was a I believe a very, very terrible student. And with that said, I hated being in school. I hated being there. I wanted to change my major so bad. So like so many times, graduated still with psychology and minored in music theory, but with all that said, I don't do anything directly with my degree, and you know, I'm not saying it's a trivial thing. Obviously, it's incredibly important, but do it for the right reasons and do it for yourself.
100%.
Because honestly, the biggest reason why I finished was because of my family as well. And I'm not like, for me, it's not like, oh, like they made me finish. It's more like you know, it's like, well, I have like one more class, or I have this other class, and like, oh, well, I have this more, and you know what? I think right now I can do it. I have the capacity to, and like at the tail end of my, of being in college, I was already out there, like already, like I was already starting to be on the road as well. And I started to stage manage, out of town and everything. And so again, with what I do with stage management, with photography and videography, like I don't do anything directly with my psychology degree, but you know, again, do it for the right reasons. If it's something that, you know, that is the right thing for you, or what it is, everybody will have their own path. And that's like the best and most terrifying part about it.
Yeah.
You know, so I appreciate you being vulnerable in that instance. Cause like, I don't think I've ever actually mentioned that in the podcast, but that was always such a sore point of pride, is where, you know, it was like, oh, I guess I'm not gonna graduate. That was one thing, is like I would apply for graduation like for like the last few semesters of me being in school, and I was like, I'm not gonna graduate this semester. And so that was always this like, okay, well, maybe next semester thing.
Yeah.
And I hated it because like mentally it just put me in such a dark place of just like, this is the time of year for me, like November, like the month before finals would roll out and like all the things would be ending. I hated this time of year because I was just like, am I going to pass this class? Am I going to graduate?
Stressful.
I graduated officially spring 2020.
Wow.
And the biggest reason why, not the biggest reason why, but like, you know, like I had like a few more classes and I finished it, and it was all online, which is great because I was already on the road again, you know, like stage managing. But you know, that was also like peak like COVID.
Yeah, peak COVID. Hello.
Yeah, and so you know, but anyway, I appreciate you sharing that, because like so forgive me, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're always like, for me, I've always
so
admired.
Close.
Sure,
that's why everyone assumed I finished, because I was so close.
Well, but also like for me, like how I always viewed you is that, you know, you're so successful doing the thing, and like the grind never stops with you. Any endeavor that you've always had, whatever you've always put your mind to and like put your heart to, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always loved that about you. It's always, I promise I'm not trying to gas you up. It's more so just like an admiration from one friend to another.
Yeah.
I've always admired your drive and how you are like with any career, like any thing that you put yourself into. That's how we got cheese for our presentation. You know, we're just like let's be about it. So I don't know. Anyway, and like I feel like that's always why I was talking to another friend about this, is that I love being around friends that are so hardworking and that are like not even directly thriving. Like obviously you're freaking thriving, but like aside from the fact that like they're thriving, it's more of like they're persistent.
Part of like the persistence and the drive was when I told my parents I wanted to pursue this, I didn't want them to like ever see me struggle. Like, I want to make sure that like I have a good life for myself, obviously, but also like I do want them to know like I'm not an idiot for this. Like I can make a living out of this, and I've proved it to them now. Like now I'm 27 and I'm successful and I'm thriving and I'm living the dream essentially. Now they see it and they're like, wow.
Speaking of people, Carrie Young, she has a podcast right now actually as well. It's called Paths in Progress. Go check it out. She just celebrated 2 years right as of this podcast releasing. It's really, really fascinating, especially if you're like in high school, because it's like helping kickstart your career. But she was an advisor at University of Houston, specifically for the music school. And actually, she was like she was like advising me. I don't really
she
think
always
I can.
took special cases too, because she was my advisor, because everyone moved to Stacia because she got a promotion and she was working with grad students, but she kept her special case kids. So I always had Carrie.
Yeah. And like, I'm not going to call her my advisor because I don't think I have the privilege to, but she definitely advised me, because I will say through my psychology degree, there's a lot of advisors,
Right.
And there were always 3 that were there, and you can always pick them, like whichever one you go to. You weren't specifically assigned to one, because there are thousands of psychology students, and so, which makes a lot of sense. And so what happened was that every year, like some of them would like leave or change or whatever else. And so I swear I've had like 5 to 10 different advisors through my entire psychology degree, and they've always been super duper helpful. They've always been really terrific. They've always helped me help steer me into the right track, and they're just like, actually, you don't have to take this class, or actually, you're fine with this, and they're always really, really great. But the one that's always stuck out to me was not any psychology advisor. It's actually Carrie.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's ever known this. I want to cry saying this.
Oh my gosh. No, I've cried many times in her office. She's a special lady.
Yeah. And like, because the biggest reason why I stuck with my music theory minor is because I wanted to be a music major. And I couldn't get into music school. And in the like same semester that I couldn't get into music school, that's when I discovered opera. And so, it was like one of those like very serendipitous, like one door opening, one door closing kind of situations. And so, but through that entire thing, she allowed me to start my theory sequence, because I tested into theory 1 and everything. And so, but I think like officially, unofficially as a music theory minor, and then I could just switch over to the major. But I didn't get into music. They didn't get into the music school, but I still stuck with my minor because I still needed a minor for my degree.
Right.
And so I think officially after a certain point, when I was able to finish certain classes, that's when her and I could finally meet and like walk through everything. And I think she may have had an understanding like, oh, this guy's not going to do anything with psychology, or at least like he doesn't seem like it. And as I was like signing things or just like doing something, and I was like in her office finally, and I got to meet her again. I've only ever had this like one brief, honestly, conversation with her, but she was like moment of silence, and she was just like, at Opera in the Heights, Rachel Walrath is there right now, and she's currently the production stage manager. I think you should really reach out to her. I think it'd be really good for your career. And she's known so much more about my career already at that point. And like, that was when I was like struggling to even just like put together like, oh, like a stage management can be a career, that I could do more with this. And I think I was already in talks with the PSM at Opera in the Heights, which is really wonderful. But it was just like her also offering different parts of advice where like, she's not directly involved with the theater school. She's not exactly involved with me in any part of my psychology degree, but she still cared. And like, I don't think she ever understood like the gravity of that. And I still tell people this, Carrie, if you're ever listening, thank you so much for that. Because like, it was like a certain level of like believing in me that it's just like, okay, like maybe this is a phase in like what he's doing, or maybe this is actually a career that he wants to pursue. But now I'm on the road a lot of times. I'm barely ever home, and I get to actually do what I love to do. And I didn't know that it was going to be the thing that I was going to be doing. And I attribute part of that to you, and like a lot of it to University of Houston mentors, but because it felt like, oh, this is somebody that was like, not only like, okay, like I'm here to help him through like some academic advising, but also you believed in my career, or at least like you showed interest in like what I was doing. And that interaction still meant so much to me. So, so that was really, really great. Anyway, Carrie Young is a fantastic human being.
She is fantastic. I mean, I have my own sob story.
Yeah.
She took me in as a special case, just like you, and she kept me, even though everyone else moved to Stacia, because I had such a complicated little schedule and a complicated life. I was the only one in my actual class that was pursuing that music marketing emphasis.
Not a lot of people were in that degree program. Yeah.
I was the only one in my year.
Wow.
And so that's why she was like, I'm going to keep you.
Oh, wow.
And Carrie Young and I have had so many conversations in her office, just deciding what I wanted to do with my life. Like, I like you said, like I attribute a lot of my success to her. Like she would sit down with me. I remember every semester we'd sit down. And if I wasn't doing well that semester, she'd put me in my place. She's like, you really got to take this seriously. Like, you got to do this. You got to get those recital credits. And I was like, I could never do that.
Oh my goodness.
I could never get those recital credits because like I always had something to do. Like I was just such a busybody. I was also working in the concerts industry at the time too when I was in music school. So it was also really hard to get recital credits, go to the nighttime shows because I'm working like in the city
during the same time those recitals were going. Yeah.
So it was really hard. And like, I could do Tuesday afternoons, but I was like also like sometimes my studio would be doing things on Tuesday afternoons too.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just also like kind of hard to like fit everything in, and I would never get that recital credit. Oh God. It was,
oh my gosh.
I had to be really diligent about it, but she, especially when it came to deciding to go to the Disney program.
Oh my gosh.
She looked at me and she said, this is going to set you back. But she's like, I think this is going to be worth it. And look, here I am now. Like, I mean, I want to cry. Holy shit. Oh, wow. She was the person who like really like, I was hesitant. My mom, yeah, she was excited, but then she's like, but what does this mean for school? Of course, you know? Yeah. And Carrie looked at me and she goes, you are going to be set back because you are going to be missing a year of like, you know, of your sequence. Yeah. You're going to be set back into a year for history, for at least the history sequence. The theory sequence I was already done with, so it didn't matter.
Oh, that's good.
But she's like, you are going to be set back for a year. Like, and I hope you understand that. Mm-hmm. But she's like, I think that this could be really something for you. And I had no experience with working with Disney before or anything. Yeah. And, the last person that she had that left for the Disney program did not have a good experience.
Wow. And for her to still say that
and for her to still say that, I was like, oh, but she'd gotten to know me so well. And she knew that I was working in the concerts industry. She knew I was very driven, and she knew like I needed to be somewhere where I could be in the world of entertainment and arts. And I sat down with her, and even like on my last, when I had to drop out of college, when I got that offer, I remember sitting in her office and trying to talk to her about it. And I was like, do I drop out of school and take this job, or like, what do I do? And she's like, well, as your advisor, I should advise you to stay in school. Yeah. But she was just kind of like, if you gotta go, but you gotta go. Yeah. She's like, opportunities like that, they don't come often. So just take it. And I was like, oh. And she helped me like transfer anything I needed to transfer when it came time that I was going to transfer to Arizona and do everything online. But man, it was obviously like I was going through a lot. I was like almost done with school, and to drop out at that rate, at that part of the school already, just to chance going on this job offer.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately now, like, I don't regret it. I'm still thriving. I'm still here. Like I still got in to do what I do. Yeah. But a lot of it, I mean, she's a very special woman. Yeah, I think I know she knows that she had an impact on people's lives, but like,
oh my gosh,
I wish that I'm sure that everyone has a Carrie Young story too. That like,
yeah, and I'm not even a music student.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I have a Carrie Young story. Like, she's just such a special lady. Yeah, and part of me is like, I hope she sees us.
yeah, for sure. Like, it's cool because, like, you know, like when I was starting, actually, another period story is like when I was starting this podcast, you know, like, and obviously it's like never a competition. Like, why would it be? But, and like, she already has like hers like super duper well established, and hers is really wonderful, and I like listening to hers too. But you know, she was very happy for me and just like all but love and support, and I'm just like, thank you. Like, I'm not even believing in myself so much about doing this. But you do. And that's more than enough to continue to do this. And like, you know, hers is a lot more frequent than mine is. And like, hers is like a full-time job and everything. And it's so fascinating. And her scope in this is so broad, but you know, older mentor figures, don't ever underestimate. And like, I mean, in general, any human being that's ever listening to this, don't ever underestimate the power of your words and the power of how you make people feel. It really means a lot, especially to students, especially to people that are just like, 100%. What am I going to do with my career? And look where we're at now, which is really, really fantastic.
It's kind of fun to like look back and see like all of this started because I went to school for violin performance. Yeah. And this is kind of where I'm at now. And it's wild. It's a wild ride.
And you seem like you have no regrets about it either.
No, I have no regrets. I have no regrets on anything. I don't have any regrets on anything I've ever done in my life because I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I believe in God. So like, I think everything is in God's perfect timing. Like he puts you in places he thinks you can handle. And so I think here I am. Like,
yeah,
it's wild. And what's next? Who knows? But for now, it's just touring. I definitely want to try my hand in other branches of the entertainment industry. Maybe one day we go back into booking and contracting, because I also like realize I do love that part. Because I don't know, there's just something about being like in negotiations that's really like fun to me. It's chaotic. I love chaos.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's like where you figure out who thrives and who's just like, oh, like this is not for me.
Yeah, like I love the chaos of everything. Like, and you know, every week we're in a new city. We have different challenges in every city, and that's part of the reason probably why I love touring so much, because I love like the organized chaos.
Yeah, like the puzzling of like how that goes.
Yeah, so I think that's it. Like
that is insanely cool.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh my God, I think that's like the best way to end this right now. Okay. But Tehillah, thank you so much for being on this episode and being a part of this podcast. Where can we find you socials wise?
My Instagram is @Wiz_Tehillah, like Wiz Khalifa, because
I love it.
I love having funny little names.
Yeah.
So that's where they can find me. That's usually like the only social I have that I tell people. Like that's the main one. That's the main one I use. That's what I tell people, find all my adventures on. Perfect. See all the fun little things I do. Yeah. But thank you for having me.
Oh my God, thank you so much for being here.
This was so fun.
Yeah, this has been so great to catch up.
This was so fun.
Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh gosh.
Thanks so much for joining us. We release episodes every 3rd and 5th Tuesday of every month. If you like this one, like, share, and subscribe to join us for future episodes. Hope to catch you on the next one.